Well, we find ourselves in, unfortunately, a familiar territory with a similar culprit in terms of we turned the ball over 17 times. We gave up 11 second chance points. Those things impact the game. They just do. I'd like to live in a world where you could do those things and still have a great chance to win, but that's not reality. And so we have to figure a way to stop turning the ball over. Whether that's a change in what we're doing offensively, too many decisions. It's not as much decision. Sometimes it is. I think sometimes it's just a guy crawls into us and he really impacts our ability individually to complete a play that, over the years I have considered to be a pretty garden variety normal play. And so we have to get better at that. We spend a lot of time at practice passing and catching, probably more than 95% of teams in the country, I would say. But it's got to translate over to the games. So,
questions? Phil on the left.
When you put this roster together, you obviously felt like you had what you needed in the backcourt to run your offense, but are you missing that point guard like you had last year with Cooper? I mean, obviously Cooper was a phenomenal player for you.
Well, no, he was good, but it was in conjunction. It was Talon Cooper in conjunction also with Michi Johnson, who also could alleviate some pressure. And then behind those two guys was Jacoby. And Zach did a little of the ball handling, but so certainly those guys were, Talon during the season I think was had the seventh highest assist rate of all active players. So I mean, that's a hard one to replace. But what happens is, you bring new guys in and guys have opportunity. Some of it happens through growth. Opportunity, and then some of it happens through recruiting a new face like Jamari. And so it's certainly when we brought these guys in, we told them about the opportunities that they would have. Jacoby's played a lot of minutes in this conference. Jamari's played a lot of minutes in his career, but guys have to step up and play better. That's the bulk of what our turnovers are. But some of our bigs turn the ball over too. But that's kind of built into the equation that those guys, if they start to make a lot of plays, they end up turning the ball over. But even we've had guys like Zach who to start to. At one point, this was a real stat, was that through like 15 games, 16 games, he had 15 total turnovers, and then he had 15 in the following 3 games also. So, why would that happen? It has less to do with your ability and just with what you're doing while you're out there on the floor. An emphasis, a commitment to not turning the ball over. Maybe guys feel like they need to do more, and that's what's yielding some of the turnovers. But obviously we got to get to the bottom of it.
Trading back.
Kind of bouncing off that question. Overall, do you feel like the struggle so far? Do you feel like it's more roster limitations, or is it just execution? Where do you stand on that spectrum?
Well, roster limitations and execution probably go hand in hand. The only thing I'll say is that in the league's overall better, I would say. I'd say most people, Mike White probably, I don't want to put any words in his mouth, probably feels like he has a more talented team than last year. I think a lot of people in our league probably feel that. The league has gotten better, but we're doing almost the same things, right? And so certainly at some point it comes down. I haven't changed practice habits necessarily, or you know, I've tweaked some of the things that we do just to simplify a couple of things, but you know, certainly it comes down to personnel's ability to execute at times.
Alan and then Jack.
You got Cam in the game tonight for the first time in almost 2 weeks. What are you seeing from him in practice and the little bit of time he's played? And I guess how close is he to maybe being able to be more part of the rotation as you guys are looking for some answers on offense?
Yeah, I mean, as we're looking for answers, everybody's going to be a viable candidate. You know, the problem with that is that I've always thought maybe there's some football coaches that'll put me in my place, but I've always thought if you have a 2-quarterback system, I don't know if you have any quarterback. You know, like in reality. So the fact that so many people can be a viable option means that someone is not holding down the position exactly the way that it's supposed to be held down. So, you know, we were also in a situation where we were trying to turn up some pressure and getting some passing lane, force a couple of turnovers, and so I wanted to get Cam in there to use his length and athleticism to try to create some disruption. But certainly we're searching in some ways for consistent performances of some, I don't want to keep dumbing this down, of some fairly garden variety things, like passing to your team, your teammates. We have to get better at that. And you know, when you get into trying new guys, this one's hot today and then cold tomorrow and then lukewarm another day. And so that can be difficult when you get into doing that, but at the same time you got to try to win the games, so you got to push whatever button you need to at the time.
Jack.
What did you make of Jacoby's struggles tonight on the floor? Did you see anything in particular that maybe you felt like led to some of the not being able to score or anything like that?
I think he's got to be aggressive. You know, he's one of the guys that I talk to specifically, and I look at him specifically when I talk about this basketball gods and the relationship that you need to have. I think you got to, you know, you're a senior. He's a senior. We have other seniors, but he's a senior. He's been in this program. He's familiar with what we do. I think he just got to be, he's got to be aggressive and competitive, and you know, if you go down guns blazing because you just can't make a shot, then that is what it is. But you know, we need him to be aggressive. We need him to play. We need him to play well. And so it just didn't seem, he didn't seem real aggressive.
Alan.
In the first half, you kind of came over that start and then had a little bit of a scoring drive around 6 minutes. Was it something that Georgia was doing defensively, or is it more self-inflicted stuff that allowed?
Well, I mean, I'd have to watch the tape, but I mean, it's probably happening in conjunction with turnovers at that time and not getting shots. And you know, we've struggled to score, which at times this season we've been pretty good. The talent overall that we're going against is ratcheted up, but you know, we also played, Xavier was in the top 25 when we played them, Indiana was, and not that we won those games, but we played 3 ACC teams. We went 3-0 against ACC teams, and so and we've scored in some of those games. So I think it's, you know, we got to get our groove back. Some individuals, and then I think that happens collectively too, but some individuals have to get their groove back, and it's, you know, it's time. And that's what comes with responsibility, is that at some point there's no more looking around to see if Michi's going to come back and get the ball, or if Talon's going to be able to come off the ball screen and make a read. There's no more of that. Those days are over. So some other guys are going to have to do it. It's their turn to do it. We're relying on them to do it, and we need to get better at doing some of those things.
Trey and Phil will get coach out of here.
In your first year, you coached through a tough stretch. Obviously, 8 straight losses to ACC play here. Kind of, what has been the most challenging part of this stretch, and how do you get through it? Like, what does it take?
Well, the most challenging part to me is that, you play the number 5 team in Florida, you lead the entire game. So, it's funny, someone said this today, and you guys have a chance, I wouldn't say in that particular game we had a chance to win the game. I don't think anyone would say that. I mean, someone did to me today, but we led the entire game, and then we failed to close the deal. You're at Vandy in an overtime game, they score on a tip-in at the last second. You got the number 2 team in the country in your building, and you lead the majority of the game. That's what's frustrating to me, is that I know I've been around a lot of really, really good teams. I mean, elite teams, to be honest, relative to the entire whole country. Elite teams. And I've also been around some bad teams. And so I know what a bad team is. And if this was a bad team, you can't accidentally do those things in the way that we had done those things. You just can't. This league is too good. It's the best the league's ever been. So that's what's frustrating, is that there's another whole timeline in which we make 3 plays and we have 3 wins versus 0 wins. And, we're in a different conversation at that point, because there are a lot of really talented teams with a little number next to them that have 3 wins in our conference. It's just what the league is. So that's the reality of it. When it boils right down to it, I think if you look at it, that's really what it comes down to.
Last question, Phil.
Just, as well as anybody, everybody's focused on your turnovers. You're focused on your turnovers in practice. And then you come out tonight, you get the tip, your first possession, you turn it over.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, what's your thought on the sideline when that thing? Because you probably practice all day, don't turn it, and that happens.
Yeah. I said that to my poor assistant coaches during the games. But, you're thinking, I wish I could put myself in right now, right? But I'm at a loss for words to some degree with it, to some degree. I mean, and these are good kids. They would like to do what you ask them to do. Sometimes guys are so hard-headed or belligerent that it's just, they're out there just going against the grain. This is not that. I truly think they would like to do what we ask them to do. It's a combination of decisions, of maybe lack of confidence as a ball handler, as a passer. It's receivers that aren't presenting themselves as wide open, maybe. I think it's been a culmination of all those things, but I mean, certainly that part of it is frustrating for me. I'm not trying to lend or shirk any blame in the whole deal. I will go, trust me. With a fine-tooth comb, I go through everything that we're doing, from practice plans to what it looks like in the game, to can we modify this play, which normally ends up with a catch on the wing. Can we modify it so there's no more catch on the wing, right? That takes one pass out and one less chance to turn the ball over. Like, it's like solving a Rubik's Cube. I mean, I know people do that pretty easily these days, but I don't think I ever got it done officially. But so we'll just keep at it until we find out what the right combination of things that we do, and people that are out there with one another, to where we can get the turnovers to a reasonable number.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks.
Coach.
Appreciate it.